Hi, and welcome to Artisan Training 3918, Part 2 of Vehicle Checklist. This is going to be the next 30% of what was on the checklist. To review, last module we discussed why we do checklists and how we do checklists, and the first 10%. This week we're going to continue with the next 30% of what's on the checklist. We're going to go really deep, item by item, because again, the point of the checklist is not just to make sure you have a tool or material in the truck. The point is to make sure that it's 100%, you know how to use it, and it is clean and on that shelf. All good craftsmen keep their vehicles square. Great craftsmen work from paper. They know that one dull pencil is better than 6 sharp minds. The next item on the checklist is roller covers. So you want to have 3 roller covers, and you want to wrap them in blue tape. You're going to have to do this sooner or later to get the lint off, and this will keep them clean in the meantime so you don't have some spooge get on your roller. The next line on them is a 4-inch grinder. Now you should have 7-inch grinders and 4-inch grinders. You use the 4-inch grinder with diamond blades and crack chasing blades, or any time where a really lightweight tool is going to allow you to tilt it and finesse it and keep it straight like an artist with a paintbrush as opposed to a 7-inch grinder. When you run a cup wheel, you want to actually use a 7-inch grinder, which on this checklist appears further down because it's on a lower shelf, so we'll cover that later, but I just wanted to show you a picture of what that 7-inch grinder looked like on the right there. You're going to have AeroSeg cup wheels, coarse cup wheels, medium cup wheels, and fine cup wheels. I made this video a while ago kind of explaining cup wheels, and it'll show grit as it
This
zooms
is an
in.
explanation of cup wheels. The coarsest one we have is what we call an AeroSeg cup wheel. This is used for removing coatings. The point of that is that if you have carpet mastic, epoxy, anything that's going to get gooey when it's hot, it'll cut off with an AeroSeg wheel and it would gum up what's called a turbo cup wheel. These with the lines kind of coming at an angle from the inside there are called turbo cup wheels. This one is a coarse or a 30 grit. Grit is a number of diamonds per square inch, and so you can kind of see how coarse that is. It's going to remove stock quickly but leave an aggressive scratch pattern. This is a medium, and as you look at those two there, you see how the comets kind of coming off of the diamonds are closer together and double in number, smaller in size. This is a turbo cup version, and this is what's called a double row cup wheel. This is not as good as this. This is something that you could get at Home Depot, and that's probably why it was in the truck, as it was bought in a pinch. But most of what we buy are these turbo cup wheels. They leave a better scratch pattern, and they are more effective. This is a fine cup wheel, and again, if you look closely, there's twice as many diamonds, and they're all half the size. Compare and contrast the fine and the medium, and the coarse and the medium.
Alright, so next on the list there are the 2 diamond cutting wheels, and those are real thin. Those are used for cutting lines in concrete. And then the crack chaser blade, and those 2 little blades are what that 4-inch grinder that we covered earlier is on. The next items on your checklist are the claw hammer. One side drives nails, the other side pulls nails. Some checklists will have a rock hammer, which is not pictured here since it's not on this checklist. That's like the claw hammer, but it has a point on the end for chipping things out of rock. This one has a sledgehammer. It's actually a mini sledge. Those are handy for driving stakes. This checklist shows 4 screwdrivers, and so if you're going to pick 4 screwdrivers, you want to have a number 1 and number 2 Phillips. That's a little one and a big one, or a little one and a normal one. There's a number 3 Phillips, which is a big one. Those are generally used for deck screws and things that we don't really use a whole lot. Checklists can be edited for a wider variety of flat drivers or of other kind of Torx bits, nut drivers. You can keep anything on the van you work out of you want as long as it's on the checklist and you square it up every week. We're going to move a little faster here as we cover some basic tools. The basic crescent wrench is on there. The pliers, a regular set of pliers, a generic set, looks like that upper right corner. Channel locks is an adjustable pliers that you use for gripping larger things. Needle nose pliers is for really small things, or you can use the points of that for opening up your HTC 500 or adjusting the things that hold the drivers on. There's a picture of a pry bar. There's a picture of a putty knife. The wire cutters that we're referring to is actually, we use it more for stripping wires. You can cut wires with a lot of things, but when you're wiring in a whip for a 240 volt machine, that's handy to have. The staplers, you want to make sure that they're stocked up with staples, that they're functional. Throw a little lithium lubricant or some WD-40 on that. Make sure that thing is clean and not covered in concrete dust. When you go through the staples, you want to make sure that like any little chodes staples are thrown away, and you've got just nice clean bars of staples. Top that thing off. The chalk tube should be blue chalk, maybe purple, maybe even white. As decorative concrete guys, we're going to want the easiest colors to remove. A framer is going to work in red chalk. We're going to work in blue because we want to cut lines and then make them disappear. You want to make sure that your chalk line is fully functional, and the longer you can maintain that and keep it, the better it gets. New chalk lines suck, and if you get a new chalk line, you can kind of break it in with a vibrator that we use for concrete, or with a palm sander. The tape measure should be functional. The little blade should be straight. If you notice it's not, you can fix that with a sheet metal vise at the shop here. When you hit up your pencils, you want to take your utility knife and sharpen both ends of the pencil so that they're ready to go. Again, you want to be, when you get in the field, you want to look squared away and not be farting around while you got the other two people with you. You want to be ready to go. Next thing on there is a utility knife. Make sure that there's a brand new blade in that, and if it's the kind that holds blades in the body of it, replace those blades now. The next thing is razor scrapers. You're going to find these in your pants pockets, or at least I do all the time, and so bring those in, and every time you do that, you save the team 50 cents or $1. It's a lot easier to give people raises when we're making money, and we make more by playing defense than we do by playing offense, meaning let's try to save what we can. The next thing on there, it just says paint brushes. That refers to these high-end angled brushes. They need to be clean and soft. So if they're not clean and soft, you want to soak them in xylene until the sealer or whatever's on there comes off, and then wash them with NutriClean. Key point, totally cool to use these with CSS because we can clean them as described. Do not use these brushes with xylene, or you will ruin an $11 or $20 brush when you could have used a chip brush. Anything that's going to ruin the brush, you want to use a chip brush. You'll see that we keep 5 of those, and they're basically disposable. That's the last thing on the lower right hand corner of this slide. Next on the thing is a lamb's wool applicator. We use those to apply paste wax or mop on floor finishes, taken up to baseboards, nice and easy. You want to make sure that that's clean and good to go. Whenever you use that tool, you want to soak the lamb's wool in water the whole way back and then get it in the wash machine at the shop. The next item on your checklist is one full thing of shark grit. Little insight into how we use this. We call shark grit putting one of those containers in a 10-gallon batch of CSS. That's just the standard loading. If the project worksheet calls for full or heavy shark grit, we're going to apply that container to 5 gallons. So if you're in the field, you roll with 5 gallons of CSS. You'll recall from part 1 of the series regarding checklists. You're going to put half of that container in that 5-gallon bucket to be at normal loading. But you want to keep a full 5-gallon container on your van as stock so that you can make up to 10 gallons with shark grit in the field. So make sure that that's as full as a new one. We have those in stock, so you can see they're not generally plumb full up to the lid. They're usually 3/4 of the way or whatever coming from the factory. All right, next on your list here, you've got spray adhesive. It's used for franken pads, for putting tape to masonry, for all kinds of improvisation. A lot of tricks to spray adhesive. The main one right now, though, is that after you use this, every time you use this, you turn it upside down and you hold the trigger to clear the tip so that that whole can will work. If you don't do that, then adhesive will set up in the tip and you probably won't be able to use that can again. So read the can and learn the little tricks. Also, you want to apply that adhesive to both items that you're trying to glue together and allow it to dry a little bit to where it's tacky, and then stick them together under pressure. That works way better. The next item on your list is acrylic fortifier. You're going to use this to augment patches and to improve bonding. Main thing that you need to know when you're doing the checklist is that this goes bad if it freezes. So you want to smell it, and if it smells like rotten eggs or otherwise bad, that whole thing's bad. In the wintertime, you got to take that off of the truck and put it in your locker every day. If we get a cold snap and it freezes in the van, you're going to ruin it. It's $20 down the drain. Additionally, Concrete polymer is way better than even the Sika Pro that's pictured. And if you do that, then make yourself a paper label that says concrete polymer. And we stock that at the shop. And it's the same deal, keep it from freezing. Next thing on your list is petroleum jelly. We use that to keep sticky things from sticking. So especially when we're doing epoxy stone, epoxy concrete, urethane mortar, we're going to want to lube whatever form we build so that it releases from such a sticky material. Lastly, on this little part of it, you've got 3 pounds of rags. I always topped off rags every day. If I used rags, I would top them off when I got back to the shop, or in the morning I always looked, because I love having plenty of good rags. I just do cleaner work that way. Next thing on your checklist are all the little dye concentrates. We keep a 1 gallon unit of dye in the 5 basic colors on the van. Now, sometimes you're going to use just part of these in a pinch, and it's critical when you do your checklist that you take them back to full, not plumb full, but as full as a new one. So we've got plenty of new ones at the shop. You can use a scale, you can use a barium cup to measure it and figure out how many ounces are in like a thing of gray dye or whatever, and then use a new one to take the old one up and then mark on the other one, 60% full or whatever. And the evaluators, the general manager, the material tool manager, any of those guys can help you with that math if you need, but those things are 45 bucks a pop, so we want to fill and fix the partials and do well with that. Again, kind of a little quick overview of how we use these. There is a standard operating procedure fully written for this, but we reduce these colors and we use the language of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 unit loading. That refers to how many 1 gallon colorants are in a 5 gallon bucket of acetone. If you have a full 5 unit loading, then you put a colorant for every gallon of acetone. 5 gallon bucket, right? And then if we're all using that language, then we can reuse our old thing. Okay, next on the list here is a Prevail sprayer kit. We keep 2 of those on there. We use those for dye, for shading lacquer, for solvents into metallics, and other tricks. It should be heavy with propellant, meaning that when that little can on the top goes empty, it's going to feel light. The goal is not to make sure that there's physically one of those in the van and it looks like your checklist is 100%. You got to make sure you are 100%. Next on the list are 5 rolls of blue tape. Now that means 5 rolls total. It might mean 7 rolls if 2 or 3 of those are less than 100%. You always want to use the partial rolls first and have things lined out like it was lined out by someone who paid for that stuff. Look good for the builders that we're working with. White tape is organized like the blue, and what you want to do with those things is cut a little 2-inch by 10-inch stick with 3/4 inch stock, and you can put that through the center of all those rolls, and that'll hold them together in order on the shelf in the van instead of just having a stack of tape there. Everything we do shows craftsmanship or lack thereof. So next on the list you see caution tape, and every time you leave a job there's caution tape up, and it's straight, meaning that you roll it so you can actually read the word caution, or cuidado as it says in Spanish right after that, and make it look slick. You put your signs up with dates, you put tape on all 4 sides, you use a razor when you cut that. There'll be videos forthcoming of those little points of craftsmanship, because if you show that you care in all the little things that you do, number one, you'll care in all the little things and you'll do great work. But as far as you not getting frustrated at work, if you don't care, the other trades aren't going to care. If you leave the job looking whatever, other trades are going to tromp on your stuff and make you frustrated. All right, so next on the checklist are 2 rolls of plastic, same deal. Might actually mean 3 rolls if the rolls are partial, but just get what you got to have to be at that stock level. Read your project worksheets carefully and bring as much plastic as you need based on lineal feet of masking for that job. Next on your list is a roll of trash bags. You never want to be working without a trash bag started. Throwing trash away promptly shows craftsmanship. Just be neat. Your roll should be about half full at least. You don't necessarily need to top that off. You're not going to blaze through more than 3 trash bags on most jobs. Next on the list are chemical gloves. Now these are different than just the latex gloves. You should have some heavy duty ones, and every artisan should have these as part of their personal protective equipment, or PPE as they say. They're used when stripping sealer or anytime you're handling some nasty solvents. You want to use the big gloves, and you can put the little latex gloves on inside these, glove on glove. Last on this section of the checklist are water boots. Should be 2 pairs. Same deal. You're welcome to buy these yourself and put your name on them and just take ownership of that, because you can wear nice sneakers and then put these on when it's game time, keeping the floor clean. It's just like when you go to the gym, it's like no street shoes. So you should have street shoes and game time shoes. These are the game time shoes. These Bullfrog ones that we get that are on the Vans already, they're high dollar. They're more than $50 a pair, but they're lightweight, they're comfortable. You can wear these all day and feel great. Whew, I got a cold, so I'm out of breath talking about the stupid checklist. This is the end of part 2. And again, I appreciate you paying attention, watching this a second time if you have to, or a third time, going over the worksheet, asking questions with the evaluator, just really getting in the weeds and understanding every material, what it's used for, how to keep it up, how to maintain it, how to use it best, how to have that thing squared away when you roll up to a job site. Because I can't say this enough, excellence is the sum of many little things put together. So your commitment to excellence is your commitment to learning every little thing. It's easy to be prideful and be like, oh, I got it, but that's not where the fruit is. You're talking to a guy that's attended dozens of training classes, and in many cases, I knew the dude that was training it. I might have known more than the dude training it, but he had one little trick. He had one little distinction, and that's part of our knowledge base, as I kept all those things and I added to them, and you should be adding to that too. I always say there's 25 people now at Element 7 Concrete, which means that there should be a 4% chance that the best way to do it came out of Corey's head, but it's got to come out of your head, and it's got to get into the system if you want to contribute and be a part of something bigger than yourself. Know that the world is a better place with you working well. So evaluators will go through this worksheet with team leaders until they're 100%, and then team leaders will go through the worksheets with their team until they are 100%. You want to make your time driving to jobs. Anytime you're on the clock in the van, let's make it count. Let's do good for our team. Let's do good for our families. Let's do good for the world. Peace.